Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first live AMA event, Ask Me Anything. So, hey, give us some grace here. It's our first one. And the reason, and by the way, I'm Ryan Canaday, the pastor and executive director here at Free Spiritual Community in Denver, Colorado. And like I said, this is our first one. And the reason we're doing this is because, I don't know, maybe some of you online, our online community who joins us every Saturday night, maybe some of you who are have been in person, but you've only been coming for a few weeks, a few months. Maybe you've got some questions about me, things you want to know about me, things you want to know about my thoughts, views, beliefs, my personal life. You can ask me anything tonight. So yeah, keep it PG. Do keep it PG. Put your questions in the comments. We do have a few live audience members. Thank you all for being here. We've got Danny Colella behind the camera, so he's running things, and he's going to pop some questions to me. Maybe questions about, I said this in the video we put out last week, addiction and recovery, my own recovery journey, questions about what's happening here at Free. Did you all know we just got AC in the big room, the sanctuary, which is good news. Like literally 10 minutes ago this happened. Maybe you've got questions about Free. Maybe you've got questions about just simple questions, sports questions, my favorite sports, my favorite teams, favorite pizza. I think I said that the other night. So any question, we will take it from you, and I will do my best to answer. So what do you think, Danny? Should we jump into it?
Let's get started.
Let's get started. And they're going to be on my screen. Oh, I did see this question. I have not seen all your questions, but I did see this one because it came from, it came on my Facebook feed, which was, what is the story behind your first tattoo? I've got a few of these things, and they are permanent. But my first one, and I can't show you because I'd have to take my shirt off to show you, and that would maybe be inappropriate on this video. But my first one was, let me tell the story first. I was 18. That's the legal age to get a tattoo. It was my 18th birthday. Mom was out of town. She was away for the weekend. And I went down to visit my sister down in Springfield, Missouri. So I was living in Osage Beach, Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. She was down in Springfield in college. And we came up with a plan that we were going to get our first tattoos together. So I drove down to Springfield. We went to the tattoo shop. I got a big Jesus fish on my back. Yeah, y'all have seen these things, right? On the back of minivans usually. I thought it was just the coolest thing ever. I went through, oh, and I've got right below that, John 16:33, which are actually beautiful words from Jesus. I came so that you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So I went down and got this tattoo. I got home. My mom's probably on here. She'll probably add to this story. I got home and I was so proud of this, and I thought she was going to be so proud. I lifted up my shirt and I said, "Ma, check this out." And she started to cry. She started to cry right away, and she was so disappointed that me and my sister would do this together without getting her permission or without telling her first. Now, the funny thing is, she now has, does she have two? She has 2 tattoos now. So those tears, they ultimately came my way. She's got 2 tattoos now. Didn't get them with me, but she did get them. Now, there was a point in my life where I regretted getting this tattoo because it's so it's overtly religious and it's so overdone. You see them all the time. And then as I got older and more mature, I came to a point to really value this tattoo. It's the earliest Christian symbol. It's in Greek, it's called the ichthus. And so it's the earliest Christian symbol. I don't regret getting it. I like it now, but I do realize it comes with some baggage. It comes with some overtones. And so not many of you have seen it because, well, not many of you have seen me with my shirt off, unless you're at the beach or the pool with me. So that's the story of my first tattoo. It'll be there forever. It was the first one. Got it when I was 18 years old. All right, shall we do another question? And we're going to have fun with this tonight. So you can ask some lighthearted ones, some serious ones, whatever you want to know. All right, Roy Richardson says, I have a question, ... When are you going to come to Asheville? You know what? I continuously hear great things about Asheville. I know you're there. Pastor Tom Cash is there. Man, I've got some people there. We've got Jen and Christy in North Carolina. So, Roy, I would love to say soon, but I don't know how soon. Tammy and I will make it to Asheville. In fact, my mom and Joe, her husband, were just out there recently, and they went on and on about how beautiful. Was it? Yeah, it was my mom. And my sister just went out there, and she said it was gorgeous. So we got to make it to Asheville. I'll take that as an invitation. I know you've invited us before. Thank you, Roy. All right, Tammy, Miss Canada is online. She says, do you miss the backyard setting or the space in Greenwood Village? Which location has been your favorite and why? Yes. How's that for an answer? And Tammy and I are going to talk about this more this Saturday because some of y'all know this is our, this week, actually tomorrow, marks 4 years since our very first free gathering in our backyard. And so Tammy and I were actually talking about that today because we are the guest storytellers this Saturday. So we're going to share some of this story. But yeah, we were talking about the backyard, and there was something so sacred about it because each Saturday night, back in 2018 in the summer, our backyard would fill up, and you had this kind of anxiety of you didn't know who was going to show up. You didn't know. I remember thinking, like, we started at 7, at 6:30, thinking, man, is anyone going to come tonight? And then one person would come, and you could breathe again. Is anyone going to come? How many people are going to come? Is this thing going to work? Are people interested in the conversation of God and recovery? So yeah, there was something so special and sacred, and there's a soft spot in my heart for our backyard where we began. And then when we got the Greenwood Village location, some of y'all here remember that. It was like we struck gold. I remember thinking, oh my goodness, we've made it. This is like, could it get any better than this right now? And some of y'all know we moved back in November to a bigger space. So that was 3,000 square feet, south suburb of Denver. Now we're in Denver proper, the south side of Denver, and we've got over 11,000 square feet. And it just blows my mind. So I love the space we're in now. We've done so much renovation and transformation. But man, the backyard and the Greenwood Village space, they will always hold a place in my heart because it was like our origins, our beginnings. And that's where this thing grew and started. So yeah, I love them both. I don't know which one I would love more. I love them both, and there's many reasons for that. Do we have another question? All right, Nathan. Nathan says, hi, Rev Ryan. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. Curious when you started ministry and what that looked like for you, how you got involved, and how you knew this was what you were called to do. Nathan, great question, man. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of this community, too. It's fun getting to know you a little bit. Great question. You know, when I was 17 years old in high school, I knew I wanted to be a pastor. Now, for those of you that know my journey of addiction and Bible school and my brother dying, getting killed in a car accident, my journey, like many of our journeys, just went up and down and up and down. And for a long time, I was convinced I would not be a pastor, that I would just go into an academic setting. Because for me, the Christian faith became an academic pursuit, and I didn't want anything to do with the church. I didn't want anything to do with that relationship stuff. I was angry with God. My faith was turned upside down in the midst of that tragedy of my brother's death. But you know, in high school, when I was looking for a place of belonging, it was a youth group that gave me that place of belonging. And so when I was 17 years old, I knew I wanted to do that for other people, create a space of belonging. So it's been a part of my life for many, many years, since high school is what I would say. When I was in college, I started doing some youth intern work. And then when I went to seminary here at Iliff School of Theology, while I was there, I took on the position of being the director of the Wesley Foundation, or we changed it to the Foundation Campus Ministry. So I did college campus ministry here at the University of Denver, and I loved it. And then I got appointed to my first church St. Luke's United Methodist Church down in Highlands Ranch in 2012. I was fully ordained in full connection in the United Methodist Church as an elder in 2014. So I've been ordained now. You all can do the math. Is that 8 years? 8 years. So I went from St. Luke's to here at Free Spiritual Community. But its ministry has been a part of my life since high school, since the age of 16, 17 years old. So that's my story with ministry.
You're going to have to tell Jen you already did this.
I did. Jen says, "Hi, Rev. I'd love to hear the story behind your first tattoo." Jen, you gotta hit the rewind button because I just told that story. So when this live is over, you can go back and watch the replay, or ask my mom. She'll tell you the full story, and she better be truthful. All right. Kiefer says, "What's key in a healthy relationship with your spouse and or friends? I admire your marriage and family." Thanks, Kiefer. It's good to see you on here, dude. Been thinking about you. There's a lot of key things. One is, I'll talk about my marriage first. One is honesty. Man, we've got to be honest. If you are in a relationship, an intimate relationship, honesty is key. And it's not just honesty with facts, to be truthful. I mean, that's like a given, right? But it's the honesty that comes with vulnerability. So and Tammy, you can chime in too in the comments if you want, but it's it's the vulnerability to let each other know what you need, to let each other know your needs. And if those needs aren't being met, to find gentle but honest ways to let your partner know that. And I would say intentional time together. And y'all, I say that because Tammy and I, we struggle with that. Having 4 little kids, our house is always chaos. There's always stuff going on. But if we can set aside intentional time together, our relationship is better. If we get lazy at that, if we get lazy in intentional time together, we can start to nip at each other. Things can start to go south. We can start to lose that connection. And I say intentional time because it's more than, we're around each other all the time. We're constant. We work in the same facility together. She's roasting coffee on the other side of the building. I'm in here or wherever, my office, or out with people. And so it's not just seeing each other, it's the intentional time so that you can have that deep conversation and keep the connection going. And it's the same thing with friends, right? And I'm really bad at phone calls. Pete, my friends will tell you that I'm bad at making the phone calls, but those connections, those little connection points are really important. To call and check in with one another, to make time for one another, that's really important in friendships. So it's time together. Time tells the story, the time we spend together.
That's what Tammy had to say. Last word was respect.
It's establishing a mutual deep respect. Yes, you have to respect each other. If you lose respect for each other, y'all know this, things will go awry really quickly. So you have to develop that respect for each other. And again, I think that comes with, not always, but a lot of times it comes with that time together, so that you can respect the one you're with, and not just respect them of not crossing major boundaries, but you respect who they are and the work they're doing in the world, whatever that work is. All right, do we have another question?
We do an audience question.
A live audience question. Uh-oh.
Okay, so I always wondered, you're such a polished speaker. What steps did you go through, or how did you get to that point?
Oh, that's a great question. And thank you for that. There was a compliment in that. Sheila asked, she said, you're such a polished speaker. How did you get to that point? What steps did you take to get to that point? One thing is practice. So I've been preaching almost every week for the last since about 2009, 2010 maybe. Because I was also doing a weekly service at University Park where we were doing campus ministry. So part of that is with practice. The other thing I would say, so I picked speakers, and some of them were pastors, not all of them, and I would watch them, and I would try to be like them, and not in a way that was, hey, I'm going to just try to be like them and not be myself, but how are they communicating with people? And what I found was all of the ones I was drawn to, all of the ones I found compelling, they were good speakers, of course. They had good flowing thoughts, but they were also vulnerable. They shared of themselves. And what I've learned, what I don't value in preaching is to just stand up and give a bunch of facts, a bunch of knowledge. Because guess what? You can go to Google for that. You can go to great books for that. There are great sermons online, but what you can't get is people's hearts. How did they get there? So vulnerability, again, comes up in that. And what I would say is, people have said to me, oh man, it just seems so natural for you. You can just get up there and kind of free flow. When I do a sermon, now this is different. I didn't prepare notes for this because these are live questions. But when I do a talk or a sermon, I make notes. So my process is throughout the week, if I'm preaching on Saturday night, Monday I'll start making notes, just kind of free-flowing notes, things I want to address, things I want to explore. And then what I do is I take those notes and compact them a little bit, put them in movements. I usually have 3 movements. And then I'll get some loose notes and then speak it. Because this speaking thing is an oral project. It is not a writing project. Many of us write very differently than we speak. If I'm writing an academic paper, it is very different from how I speak. But when you're talking to people, we use a vernacular. We can say things like dude and bro and all the phrases we have, things you wouldn't write in an academic paper. So I know some speakers, some preachers, they make a manuscript of their talk or their sermon. I don't do that because I find when I used to do that many moons ago, but when I did it was less relatable. It was too academic. It was fact driven rather than heart driven, and I think we need both. But there's a way to speak it where I can try to give you my heart and try to make it relatable with the things that have changed my life. So if I can paint God in my world and make it come alive in your world, or paint spiritual ideas in my world and tell you how they've transformed me, and then bring it into your world, is always my hope. Sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. And if you have ever done public speaking, you know you have those times where you're like, dang, I just knocked that out of the park. And you also have times where you thought it was going to be great. I can't tell you how many times this happened. I'm so excited to give this talk. It's going to be so moving. And then it just kind of flops. And that just comes with it. That just comes with the game. You learn along the way. But practice. And I orally go over it many times. Tammy can tell you, I'll go out in the garage and sit in the car, and I'll go over it on a Saturday morning. So I don't get up and just free flow, because I want to be intentional with my words, intentional with my thoughts and ideas. And my prayer is that it speaks to people, that God uses those words to actually speak to people and to move them, to transform them, because that's what these things have done for me. Great question. Thank you for that, Sheila. All right, let's do another one. Jeanne says, do you plan on training other communities to do what you're doing in Denver? That is a great question and very interesting question. I was going to say more about this Saturday night, but since you brought it up, I'll speak to it now. And in fact, I did allude to it last Saturday. We are getting more and more questions, emails, phone calls from people all over the country: California, Arizona, Michigan. I could go on and name more. Just talked to someone yesterday in Fort Collins, and their question is, hey, how do we start a free here? And the truth is, my answer has primarily been, hey, it's a great idea, but I don't have much to give you. I don't know yet. So what we did is we wrote a grant to Anschutz. We just received this grant money a couple of weeks ago. We received a $10,000 grant. And I have put a team together. There's 5 of us on this team, and we are going to start exploring together. And we're going to take our time with it so we do it well. What does it look like for us to branch out into other parts of the country, to start new frees? I want to, because there's some legalities that come up, and I don't want to overthink it, but I don't want to do it sloppily either. So yes, that is on our radar. It is on our vision. It's in my goals, because I can't tell you the number of people who have come to us, city leaders, police officers, you all in the community, and it's been, hey, everywhere needs a free. I mean, what's happening here? This idea of breaking the silence of addiction, this idea of not doing shame, building spiritual connection, offering a place for spiritual refugees who feel like they don't belong in a church. They've been kicked out of churches. They've been kicked out of religious classrooms, whatever it is. We have those stories here. Yeah, we hear those comments all the time about, man, there needs to be a free in every city. So we are exploring that, and I hope by this time next year, possibly sooner, we have some more structure, some training to give to people in what exactly it is we're handing off. So we are exploring that. We're only 4 years old. Not even, 4 years was our very first gathering in the backyard. We didn't get our 501c3 status, 501c3, until I think 2019, November of 2019 or 20, I can't remember. But so we're still pretty new at this, but we realize it's a big thing in this community. So we definitely want to explore it. Thank you for that question. That's a good one.
We have an audience question.
All right, let's hear it. Jim.
You mentioned that Tammy had a previous job where she was asked her views on gay marriage and homosexuality as a person who identifies as a gay man. I was grateful to hear that. And on your previous question, you said, how did I get there?
Yeah.
How did she get there?
Yeah.
And how did you get there?
Great question. So Jim's question was, and can I say how you identify? Jim identifies as a gay man. He also heard part of my story last week of Tammy getting kicked out of a religious organization, being fired for, she was asked very poignantly what she thought about gay marriage and did she support it? And she said, yes, I support it. And yes, God loves these people. And yes, we should welcome them. And she lost her job because of it. And I'll be honest with you, Jim. There was a time in my life that I stood adamantly opposed to the gay community. I can in fact say I hated them. So there was a day when I hated you, my brother, right? And it was because of religion. I grew up in a culture of the evangelical Midwest culture. And so the way we read the scriptures, and I've preached on this before. I've done a whole sermon series on this. There are 6 scriptures in the text, in the biblical text, that have very loose mentionings of same-sex relationships, and really they're not even there. And I realize I'm being a bit ambiguous here because there's whole history that we could go into. And when you get into this history, when we get honest with the biblical text, it's interesting that we've chosen a whole group of people to hate that Jesus says nothing about. I mean, Jesus never mentions this. The text is very unclear on this. How it is in our world was very different than how it was in the ancient world. And people point to the Apostle Paul. Paul was not, he was not talking about same-sex monogamous relationships with 2 adults. He was talking about what went wrong with the ideas of adult males preying on children for power, for superiority. But this idea of same-sex relationships, now you can go to other places to find conversation about it, but you really cannot go to the scriptures. And I feel very strongly about that. And listen, y'all, when I say that, man, I lost a lot of sleep over this. I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of respect in former communities. I struggled with this one greatly because I thought, man, if I've got this wrong, what else could I have wrong? And I made my way there through lots of prayer, lots of reading, rereading the scriptures. And I'll get an email about this. I guarantee it. Someone will send me a Facebook message and tell me that I'm a wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm leading people astray. People are going to hell because of me. Listen, I feel very confident about God's love for all people, especially in this area, especially for our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. It is not, you're not going to show me a verse in the Bible that says, oh my goodness, I just missed that one. How did I miss that one? I've read them. I've studied them. I feel very confident in my position in that. And I can say with a great deal of confidence, God loves all people, and that's my job as a pastor, is to love. And judgment of the LGBTQ community has no place here. We've spent a lot of time in many Christian circles doing hate. And y'all Google it right now. Google the suicide rates in the gay community. Christianity has something to do with that. It is fair to say there's some blood on our hands because of that. It's got to stop. You can't point to Jesus for this one. You can for love. You can't point to the scriptures for this one. It's not there. So let's stop using the Bible as a weapon. Let's stop using it to bash people, and let's use it for what it was intended for, to transform lives, to love. So thanks for that question, man. I realize it's a loaded one, and I could talk all evening about it. All right, what else we got? We got Stephen. Stephen says, possibly off topic. Hey, nothing's off topic because it's an AMA event. Ask me anything. What are your thoughts concerning the legalization of marijuana in regards to addiction and impaired driving? Whew, you had to go there. Come on now. And I got to take a drink. This is water, by the way, not coffee, because it is past 5. You know, I'm not sure I've come to a good conclusion. I know there are some in the sober community who use marijuana, who use it recreationally, not for medicine purposes. I do not. For me, I'm very aware that it would be a really dangerous move. In fact, I was talking to someone just last week, and he said, man, I thought I could do it in 3 days. He was a couple years sober. He started using marijuana. 3 days later, he found himself at a liquor store. And that's exactly how my story would go. No time at all. It would go from using pot to being at a liquor store. I'm pretty sure of that story. Are there people who can use it recreationally and it's not a problem in their life? Just like someone could have a glass of wine or a beer or drink socially with friends. Absolutely. But your question was about legalization. Man, I wish I could give you a really firm answer. I go back and forth. I waffle on it a bit. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I stand on it. I know for many people, we have people in this community who it's caused havoc in their lives, especially young people. I talk to many, many parents who are dealing with 16, 17, 18-year-olds well into their 20s, and it's become a real addiction. People say, oh, you can't get addicted to pot. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Oh, well, it doesn't destroy your life. Yeah, sometimes it does. Can people use it responsibly? Yeah, I think so. I know people that do. I wouldn't be one of them. So should it be legalized? I don't know. My judgment is suspended there. Okay, is there another one? Is that really a serious question? I said anything was welcome. It's a serious question. What is your favorite pizza? I said you could ask me that. Oh, favorite pizza place. Thick or thin crust? Let me tell you about my favorite pizza place, because it is not in Colorado. It originated in St. Louis, Missouri. It's a place called Emo's, I-M-O''S. Anyone heard of Emo's? Come on, someone's got to be online that can give a thumbs up on that. Emo's, it's a thin cracker crust, and it uses, what's the name of the cheese? I'm going to think about it later, and I'll put it in the comments. But best pizza ever, Emo's Pizza. If you're in the St. Louis area, they have them in South Missouri, down in Springfield. But I think they're all over Missouri. If I'm in Colorado, oh man, Jets is good. They're 8-corner crust, but Bojo's is a staple here. We almost went to Bojo's last night. My son loves Bojo's pizza. It's real thick, and what he loves about it is they serve it with jars of honey, little bottles of honey on the table, and you can pour honey on it and dip your crust in the honey. Whew, it's good stuff. All right. Oh. Okay, thick or thin crust? Yes, I said thin crust. All right, Molly Ann King says, what helped you get back up after your fall with alcoholism? Yeah, that's a great question. I finally got, and we hear this phrase a lot in our community, in the recovery community, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I hated hating myself. Towards the end of my alcoholic drinking, Tammy, my wife, would tell me stories of how Selah, my daughter, who was 2.5 at the time, how she couldn't wake me up and she was scared that I was dead. And she would be hitting me on the head, on the couch, saying, "Pops, Pops, wake up, wake up." I did not, and this is grace, right? This is God's grace in my life. I did not want to give that life to my daughter, and now we have 4 kids. They deserve a good pops, a pops who's present in their lives. My wife deserves a partner, a husband that she can respect and trust. And that trust had to be re-earned. But the bottom line was I was sick and tired of being sick and tired and literally being hung over 5 or 6 days a week. As I got older, I was telling someone yesterday, as I approached 30 and I got sober at the age of 30, man, my hangovers got a lot worse. Man, I would feel so sick. And in my early 20s, it wasn't a big deal. But as I got older, those hangovers started to be unbearable. So it was a physical sick and tired of being sick and tired. And it was a mental, it was a spiritual. I was living a life, and I'm a 4. I'm an Enneagram 4. The most miserable I can be is when I'm living a life that's out of alignment with who I am. And that's what it was for me. I was living a life that was totally out of alignment with my heart. And when I live that way, I become pretty miserable pretty quick. And so I didn't want to live that way anymore. I was losing the things that were most important to me. And thank God there were people there who were willing to show me the way out, who were willing to say, walk here, walk with me, and I'll show you the way out of the chaos. And there's all kinds of grace in that. Yeah, good question, Marlene. Chris Watson. What is your vision for free for the next 5 and 10 years? Man, big vision stuff. What can people do to get involved in the dynamic growth and impact that free is experiencing? Good question, Chris. So part of that vision would be what I just talked about a few minutes ago, which was how do we expand? So and let me say what the vision is not. The vision is not to outgrow this place. Like I said, we have over 11,000 square feet. We just built this beautiful cafe in this, what we call the big room. Some of you would call it a sanctuary. You know, we can fit in a neighborhood of 200 people. So the vision is not, man, once we grow out of this, then we're going to get a bigger place. And once we grow out of that, we're just going to get a bigger place. And people have said that, like, oh, man, we're going to be in a stadium. No, we're not. No, we're not. It's not going to happen. At least while I'm pastor here. And I shouldn't say never. It's just it's not at all my vision. I don't feel called to that. I'm not knocking mega churches and mega movements. It's not in my bones. It's not in my calling. It's not in my sense. But what I do think is cool is we have a vision here that is unique and compelling. And it's, was it Howard Thurman who said, find the place where your greatest joy meets the world's greatest needs? We're meeting a need here. There's a crisis in our community with addiction, with isolation, social disconnection. It's killing people. People are literally dying. And if they're not literally dying, they're spiritually dying. They're mentally dying. So our mission is meeting a need here, breaking the silence of addiction, creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. And so we want to expand that in other places in the country, maybe even the world. We want to see that expand. And so we've got a vision that we're working on the vision to make that happen. And then, Chris, I think the second part of your question was, how can people get involved here? And part of what I always tell people, some people will contact me and say, well, I want to do this there, I want to do this. And I say, just come. First, come and be a part of the community so you can see what we're about and what we're up to here. Come and be a part of things. And then, I don't want to point people out, but we have 2 people in this room, Rich and Sheila, who have been volunteering here for many, many months for years. Yeah, not many months, but years of making coffee each week. So part of it is simple. Come and I know they would give up a week of making coffee. Is it true? Their thumbs up is what I'm getting. There's simple ways. Sometimes y'all, and I know come and clean a bathroom. Oh, no, I want to do something big. No. Come and clean a bathroom. I mean, start small. Start small. And I say that with somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but we have a home team here. In fact, we're going to be re-engaging that home team. Kristen, I've been talking to Kristen, our new home team lead. We're going to be putting more things together, but we need people to be friendly faces here. People to greet people, to show, because listen, when so many people come into this community, they come in with this fear and trembling. Am I going to be accepted? I have booze on my breath. Will I be? Yeah, you will. But we have to create that community. We have to create the atmosphere. And it's here. It's in our DNA because we know what it's like not to be accepted. We know what it's like to have the fear of, man, I'm walking into the church and I just drank, you know. We know what that's like. But there's really lots of ways to get involved. But first, you just got to come and be a part of it and check it out. Yeah, I'll leave that there.
Another audience question?
Another audience question. Let's hear it.
Two-part question. Why did you use the word shame in We Don't Do Shame? The second part is at the baptism, there was 3 questions.
Yeah.
Having tears.
Yeah.
Why do you use the question? I'm not a broken person.
Yeah.
Or,
Damaged goods.
yes.
Yeah, so his question was, why here do we use the word shame? Why do we talk about shame? And I think more pointedly, your question is, why is our tagline here, and we say it every week, we don't do shame. And then you ask questions about baptism. One of the questions I ask in every baptism is, do you confess that you are not damaged goods? Because y'all, I can't tell you how many people I encounter, how many people I talk to, and they truly see themselves, even if they don't use those words, damaged goods, they see their past, their trauma, the things they've done, or the things done to them, abuse, trauma, abandonment, and they look at themselves as they're not really created in God's image. They're not really worthy of the God stuff. They're not really worthy of love and belonging. A fundamental primary message here is you are worthy. Every piece of your being is worthy. I mean, I can't say that enough and I can't emphasize it enough. You are worthy. And the place we got to get to is you actually believing that God actually still wants you. No matter what you've done, no matter how checkered your past is or how checkered your present, you're still worthy. Now, you may have done some things in your life. You may be doing things in your life right now that are causing broken relationships. You might be causing a mess in the world. So I'm not trying to condone all that and say, oh, that's great, keep doing that. But you're still worthy. That's what's so, when we talk about unconditional love, when we talk about grace being amazing, think about the song Amazing Grace. That's what's so amazing about it, is that you're still, those things are still for you. Even when you're creating a mess. It doesn't condone it all, but it says you're still loved, you're still worthy of love and belonging. It's why we call this place free. Because all the things that set us free, grace, compassion, love, forgiveness, these are the things that are so freely given by God. And they set us free. Great question.
Speaking of shame, I think this is the right thing to bring up right now.
Kiefer says, I relapsed a few weeks ago. Last night I took a bunch of pills to hopefully not wake up, but I woke up sick. I'm ashamed and I feel like I can't walk back into rooms without judgment. I'm not sure if I can get this together. Sorry for commenting. This, I just don't have anyone to talk to. Kiefer, I think you have my number. Dude, call me. We can talk tonight. I'll be driving to the airport later tonight to pick up my daughters. Yeah, relapse doesn't have to happen, but I know it's a part of many of our stories. And what I can say, I hope you know this here, Kiefer, and some of you may not know, Kiefer was just one of our guest storytellers, a couple of months ago. And dude, I know this stuff is real to you. If you're thinking to yourself, man, I was just putting on a mask. I was just being a facade. I was just putting on a performance. No, you weren't. Man, I remember meeting with you in my office. I remember the phone calls we had. This stuff meant something to you. I know sobriety was real for you. It's an insidious disease, man. It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. It will seek to take everything from you, including your honesty, your vulnerability. It'll make you put on a tough man show, and dude, you don't have to do any of that. And I hope you know it here at Free, and I know in the 12-step rooms of recovery. I know because I was one of them. I came back in after relapse, and I thought, man, I don't know if they're going to take me. This is going to be embarrassing. And they loved me. They loved me when I did not know how to love myself. Man, I barely knew how to tie my shoes. And those people walked with me. And I know here at Free, you're not going to get the shame, man. You're going to get loved. But the worst thing you can do right now is isolate. The worst thing you can do is buy into that lie up here and in here that says, nah, I screwed it up. Man, I'm beyond repair. So Kiefer, I hope you come this Saturday, man. I'd love to give you a big hug. I'd love to. And I know other people in this community are going to surround you with that same love. And call me later. I'll be around. Love you, man. Kira McAllister says, what is your belief in the afterlife? Do you believe we die and go to heaven or hell? Do you believe we are born again and have past lives? Great question. And I'll say when it comes to a lot of that, my judgment is suspended there too. But I will answer it as much as I can. And understand in my former, well, not my former life, in my older life, growing up in a very evangelical setting, evangelical culture, man, that was what the Christian faith was all about. I mean, you don't worry about this world. This world is passing. This world is dying. It's all about where you go when you take your last breath here on earth. Are you going to go to heaven? Were you good enough? Did God accept you? Did you invite Jesus into your heart? Then that's what gets you to heaven. If in your 70, 80 years of living, if you're lucky, and you didn't have the right head belief, you didn't invite Jesus into your heart, well, then when you die, you get to go to a place of suffering forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And then somehow we bought into calling that good news. We called it good news. Can you believe that? And I know there's many Christian circles that are still in that place. And so I want to tread lightly. I don't want to just bash someone's views. For me, it's totally unhelpful. For me, when I read through the scriptures, Jesus, I think he was so very little concerned with the afterlife. He was always talking about the here and now. When you read in the scriptures in the New Testament about eternal life, it was about the life that just keeps on going. It was the good kind of life. It was the life found in God. So, you asked the same question that my kids ask. Breck was asking me this just the other night in bed when he was going to sleep. He said, "What is heaven like?" And I said, "I don't know. I've never been, but I think I've experienced it here. Think of your best days, like the best relationships, the ones where you feel at ease, the ones where you feel loved and worthy, everything we were just talking about. Man, isn't that heaven? When we talk about the Lord's Prayer, or not when we talk about it, when we pray it, which we are talking about this Saturday, heaven on earth is one of the lines. Like, heaven's doing just fine. It's earth, right? It's earth that needs the help. But I tell my daughter, Selah, she's 11 years old now. And since she was young, she's always asked these great spiritual questions. And she's done many, many funerals with me, many, many weddings with me. She is my total sidekick in this stuff. And she asked me one time, she said, it was right when we were leaving a funeral, she said, "Well, Poppy, where do you go when you die?" And my response to her is, and it's what I really believe, I don't know exactly what it looks like. I really don't. I mean, I would love to believe in mansions and golden streets and crowns, and some Christians talk about it as praising God 24/7. That sounds a little boring to me, like singing worship songs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, okay, that'd be cool for like one day, then count me out. But what I think is, into the hands that created us or into the hands that we die. And that's where faith comes in. Because if you just have all this certainty about life after death, well, then why do you need faith at all? I trust that God is good, and that's as far as I can take it. So I trust that God is good even after I take my last breath here on earth. I trust that God is good. I don't know what it all looks like. I'm pretty confident. I'll close with this. When we're talking about the idea of an eternal hell, that stopped working for me many years ago. One, hell in the scriptures in the New Testament is Gehenna. It's a literal valley. Like you can see this valley when you're standing in Jerusalem. It was a trash heap. It was a very literal place. It was where bodies were in trash, and dogs would be gnashing at their teeth to get at this trash. So that's where a lot of that imagery comes from. But if there's a God who could send people to an eternal place of suffering forever and ever and ever, well, that's not redemptive. So we do some redemptive punishment, and we see that, if we send our kids to their room or whatever, ground them, there's some redemption in that. You don't ground them forever, though sometimes we want to, I know. But if that's who God is, and I mean this, like, count me out. I don't want to be a part of that. That's not a God of love. And if God's going to send to an eternal place of suffering, it's not love. For me, that's not God. That's something else. And if you can imagine, this changed for me before I had kids, but when I had kids, it started making more sense. Is there anything any of my kids could do that would cause me to say, and so many people say, well, we're God's kids, and I believe this. We're children of God. Is there anything they could do that would make me say, well, that's it, Selah. That's it, Shiloh, Bricks. You've done it too many times. You've been bad too many times. Disobedient. I gave you so many chances. Now I'm going to put you in a dark closet. Not just for a little while, but forever. Would anyone call me good? Would anyone say, now that's a good father? You would say, no, call child services. This is abusive. This isn't good. But somehow we've looked at God in so many circles say, isn't that good news? No, that's not good. That's terrible news. And I'm familiar with all the theology around it. I'm very familiar with it. So there's, again, not a verse you could point to and say, well, yeah, but you didn't read it. I've read that verse. I promise you I have read it. But anyway, that's afterlife, what happens, what exactly it looks like. I don't know what it looks like. I've never been. But I'm confident that God is good. All right, here's another question. By the way, do we have about 10 minutes left, Danny? Is that right? All right, we got 10 minutes. Do you ski or snowboard? If so, what is your favorite resort or skill level? I'm an expert, all right? I'm just kidding, I'm not an expert. Let me answer it with two little backstories first. So I just mentioned one of my son's names is Breck. He is named after the beautiful town and ski resort of Breckenridge, Colorado. We love Breckenridge. We spend quite a bit of time up there. Do I ski or snowboard now? Not nearly as much as I used to. It's few and far between, if I'm honest with you. So when I came out here for college, I moved out here in 2002. I was, I think 19 years old. I went to a college where you had Fridays off in class, so we went up every single Friday. That was my life, snowboarding. So I skied as a little kid, but then I got into snowboarding because I grew up on a Lake of the Ozarks, and I grew up wakeboarding. Lived for wakeboarding. It was life. When I was 21 years old in college, I was doing, do y'all know what a tantrum is? A tantrum to blind is what I was doing. So that's a backflip, and then in the air you're doing a 180 and you're landing with the rope behind your back. And ideally you land on the board and you keep going. The problem is I landed, and when I landed, I heard this big snap. And my femur, the hardest bone in your body to break, snapped in half. Yeah. So I'm laying in the water, my legs are in the air, and it looked like someone had opened up my leg and stuck a basketball in it, then closed it back up. It was this close from coming out of the skin, and I think they call that a compound fracture, which would have been disastrous being in a dirty lake with all kinds of, germs and bacteria and all that. So I'm laying in the water, and a water rescue boat had to come get me. It was so painful. Tammy was with me on that boat. Luckily, we had a nurse on the boat. Tammy and I had just started dating. So, yeah, she got to take care of me for a little while. She got to see me at my very worst, and she did spectacular. Thank you, honey. But I was on the couch for the rest of the summer. And so that experience kind of left me, I don't know, put some fear in me, you know? And I just lost kind of my love and passion for snowboarding and skiing. So I'll do it every once in a while, but it's not something I'm passionate about. I know we have a lot of people here who are passionate about that. I own a snowboard. I own all the gear. I just don't go up very often. But maybe that'll inspire me to get back up, conquer some of that fear. I'm 40 years old now.
8 minutes and about 3 questions.
Okay, I'll be quick.
Somewhat of a speed round. Rich, go ahead.
Real quick, Ryan, name your favorite foods and your favorite sports teams.
Favorite foods and favorite sports teams. I love spicy food. The spicier, the better. The more I'm sweating, the better it tastes. There is a limit where you can hit, and it's like a night ruiner. I'm not talking about those, but I'm talking about really spicy. So spicy Thai food, love it. Mexican restaurants, could eat it every day, but spicy Thai is really my go-to. Some Thai curries. Favorite sports teams. Man, if you're not an Avalanche fan right now and you're living in Colorado, we have a problem. So I love the Colorado Avalanche. Breck, my son, my 6-year-old son, he is so into the Avalanche. He'll be watching the game tonight. It starts in about 15 minutes. So he's a huge Avalanche fan, so he's getting me back into hockey. I grew up a St. Louis Blues fan. My dad had seasons tickets to the Blues, so grew up Blues. Also grew up a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan. My dad also had seasons tickets to the Cardinals, so I kind of grew up at Busch Stadium. And Dad, I apologize for this one. I have become, and he knows this, I've moved away from being such a Cardinals fan because I've lived out here 20 years and have kids out here, so you kind of adapt. So I'm a big Rockies fan. I know we don't have much to write home about right now. I love the Rockies. I love baseball. I love the summer vibes. So Rockies, Avalanche, and I like the Cardinals too. They're my second place. All right, next question. Brandon says, what does the word say about addiction? Some, quote, Christian churches certainly condemn that as sin. Your thoughts? I'll try to answer it really quick. The way I understand sin, which is, for me, that's formed by scriptures from, primarily from the Christian tradition. The way I understand sin is anything that disrupts shalom. So shalom is that, the ancient Hebrew word for peace. It's anything that comes along and disrupts that peace. So the things that we do that can disrupt relationships, healthy rhythms and relationships with ourself, relationships with others, relationships with God, relationship with the universe, anything that disrupts that I understand as sin. So I know sometimes we have that understanding of sin as, well, when you disobey God, when you do something against God, well, I believe God wants us to live in alignment with what's happening in the world, live in alignment with that process of shalom, with that process of peace. So is addiction sin? Addiction for me led to places of total disruption, total disconnecting from myself, from God, and from others. The problem becomes when we start understanding addiction as moral failure. I don't understand it that way. I understand it as, yes, there's a spiritual solution for us as addicts and alcoholics and other addictions, but it's also, there's enough research that it's also a disease. It's a problem in the mind and body. That if I were to pick up a drink today, my allergy to alcohol is still alive and kicking. It would be as alive and kicking as it was when I got sober 9.5 years ago. So I think what you're hitting on more probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but is the idea of shame and why Christian circles or churches or movements put shame into this rather than love and healing, because we know that's what brings healing is love. So I hope that helps. Good question, Brandon. Is this the last question?
Yep.
Last question, and we have about 3 minutes left. How was the transformation from hardcore Christianity to more of a spiritual philosophy? That's a good question. It's interesting words, hardcore Christianity. So I still claim my narrative, I was born into the narrative of Christianity, and I still claim that narrative. So when people say, are you Christian? Yeah, I'm Christian. I identify as Christian. But the move away, I wouldn't describe it as hardcore. I would say I've moved away from evangelical Christianity. I don't identify as an evangelical Christian. I am ordained in the United Methodist Church, which is mainline Christianity. But it's what I've learned in my recovery is the whole thing is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. So it is a move to a more spiritual path. And what I mean by that is I'm way more open to other ideas outside of even the Christian tradition than I used to be. I don't say there's just one way to transformation. I've seen lives transformed by many traditions, many ways, many paths. And I can connect with God. It's not just, and I'm not bashing religion. Religion has a role in culture, I believe that, but it's not, connecting with God is not a mere religious practice. It's God, it's recognizing that God is everywhere and in everything and in every moment, and we get to tap into those moments. So that was my move away from a set of doctrines and dogma and beliefs, a move towards a way. And I believe Jesus describes, you'll often hear me say that Jesus is the way, meaning it's the way, the path, but not the only way or path. And that's, I realize that's going to rub people, some people the wrong way. But it's spiritual in the sense of understanding and seeing God in everything and everywhere and every moment. And we get to tap into those things. We get to tap into that, I've said it the last few weeks, the divine energy that's always flowing in our midst. So I still identify as Christian, and I identify as being on a spiritual path. And I don't see those two as separate from one another. I see them actually as one. All right, y'all, thank you so much for, you guys had some great questions. I don't even know if we got to all the questions, but I had fun being with you today. You're inspiring me, and I know the temptation is going to be to go home and think, why did I say that? Why did I say it that? I should have said it this way. I should have said it that way. Why did I ramble on that point? And I'm going to, y'all hold me accountable. I'm going to let this go. When I walk off of this stage, I'm going to let all this go because I did the best that I could and I tried to engage you, and I'm grateful for y'all. I love this community, love your questions, and thank you for allowing me to be your pastor and to walk with you, and y'all teach me so much along the way, and I'm grateful for that. So I will see you again soon. We'll do this again at some point.